Hello and welcome to Retirementals. I'm Abraham Okusoya and I am delighted to be here today. I am really excited about my guest today. Gretchen Betts is the Managing Director of Magenta Financial Planning, and she's a multi-award-winning certified financial planner, chartered financial planner, and financial coach. Gretchen, welcome to Retirementals.
Thank you, Abraham. And yeah, thanks so much for asking me to join you today.
It's a pleasure. I have followed your work, your firm for many years. You're a leader in the next gen financial planning movement, and all the good stuff that you've been doing in the profession. So it's an honor for me to have you on. Let's dive right in. Give us a sense of your journey, the journey that brought you to financial planning and where we are today.
Okay, yes, and it's always sort of the opening question, isn't it? So, where shall I start? Financial planning certainly wasn't on my radar. Let's put it that way. At school, I think quite often with people who end up in our profession, it hasn't been something that they've known they've wanted to do for a really long time. So certainly for me that was the case. I wasn't really academic at school. I was a lot more sort of creative and wanted to do art, and that's what I did. I went to Cardiff University and I studied ceramics for 3 years. I've got a Bachelor of Arts in that. And so that's really where I thought my life was going. That, or maybe, something to do with art therapy or teaching art. That's what, when I was at school, that was kind of my focus. And certainly, the realms of thinking about, running a business or financial planning was not on my radar at all. And but when I qualified, when I got my degree, I realised actually I didn't really like making things that people want to buy, and so that brings things into sharp focus, especially if then you still want to stay in the city and you still want to pay your rent and all of these things, So I got a job. I applied for several, and I ended up working as an administrator for a financial advisor. And it was in an in-house accountancy, firm. So it was in Grant Thornton, which is a big recognised accountancy practice, and they had financial advisors working within their practice. And I ended up working for this guy called Adam. And my first week was when the Twin Towers, the planes went into the Twin Towers. And so that kind of quarter, I would say, was a bit of a baptism of fire in supporting that advisor who, to be honest, everyone was a bit in free fall, weren't they? And that was quite a nasty time for everyone. And so that was my first experience of market volatility, market falls, etc. It was quite dramatic in those first sort of 6 months. And I stayed working there for about 3 years. And then over the years, I moved to a slightly different accountancy practice, again, doing financial services and financial advice in-house. And I sort of trained from being an administrator to paraplanning to then advising. And in my final role in the accountancy practice, I was working alongside a female advisor at that point. And that's probably become what seems to have become more of a sort of that journey for me. So when I decided to spread my wings a bit more, and I say that because I think that the accountancy world has become quite a comfort blanket. I was quite comfortable where I was doing enough, but I wasn't really being stretched, and I decided to, go out there and look for a much sort of more comprehensive financial planning role. And I ended up, working at Bluefin, which is where I met Julie Lord, which many people who are listening will know that we set up Magenta together. So I think the accountancy world gave me a really great founding space to run a business, because I did tons of stuff from like marketing, tax returns, reading accounts, because you were talking to accountancy clients, you had to understand everything else that was going on with them. So, understanding company secretarial, all of that kind of stuff. And that actually has really helped now running a business. So when I look back, I see those as, you know, really informative years for my current position. And then Julie and I worked together for about 4 or 5 years at Bluefin. It then became Towery. And I think everyone knows the story after that, because we decided we didn't want to do that anymore and work under that sort of big umbrella, and started Magenta in 2016. And so 2016, we started the business. And since then, Julie's retired, we've completed the MBO, and so I'm 2 years into that now. I've been running Magenta, you know, on solo, with obviously a great team behind me, but me being the primary, you know, owner, and running that business.
It's incredible. Don't give it all out yet. We're going to unpack all of that stuff, all of that journey. Was there, by the way, was there a turning point? Was there a point along the journey where that young art graduate thought, actually, I can do this. I can set up a business. I can, you know, own a business. What was that turning point?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about confidence. So certainly coming out of school, going into the kind of more creative world, was probably because I'd just sort of not been encouraged at school to do anything different. They'd seen that I was good at math. They weren't willing to sort of put their hours in to make sure that maybe all of my other kind of academic side of things were stronger than they could have been. And that was probably partly me as well. You're a teenager, you want to do what you want to do. So I'm not putting it all on my teachers or my parents, but I think, you know, you find, you know, it comes back to that comfort zone again, doesn't it? You find something that you're good at, so you tend to just stick with that. And I think that then needing to enter this corporate, which was a very corporate world, you know, working at Grant Thornton, you know, there was a couple of things. I met a bunch of great people in the first job who were all aspirational, wanted to better their lives through education and through, I guess, yeah, having those people around me that, you know, were living a life that I'd quite like to live. It does motivate you to hang on a second. What do I really want to be doing? Where do I really see myself? So I think turning point, meeting a couple of people from a social perspective through work that really influenced me. And then certainly the move to Bluefin and meeting Julie was very significant. Not that at that point we thought we'd run a business together, but just meeting people who were, you know, always a leader in the profession, wanting to be, you know, one of the best, and really wanting to embrace, as we all know now, you know, financial planning that's, you know, bettering clients' lives rather than financial advice, rather than a more transactional basis that I had been generally doing. Generally, that's what I'd been doing before that point, you know, in the accountancy world. So I think those two things, yeah, meeting aspirational people who are maybe further on in their careers, them supporting me, encouraging me, thinking about actually, and even just getting the first qualification, because I really didn't think I was going to be able to do those exams, you know. So not being mathematical and not being of that inclination, to know that actually you can go and get some of the highest qualifications, you know, available for everyone in the profession. I think, you know, the more you get into it, the more you feel encouraged.
It's amazing, isn't it, that, you know, you go through secondary school, maybe even university, thinking you're not academic, as someone say, you know, like you're not academic, you're not business orientated, and then you take a certified financial planning course program and passed. It took me three, and I am academic, right? It took me three attempts to pass, right? You take a chartered set, you know, and it's amazing the conditioning that school or the early years put into us and then we realize that actually we can spread our wings in a different way than that, the conditioning, and fly. So it's amazing.
It is, and it only takes like, I think you can quite flippantly kind of ignore that and kind of go, oh well, yeah, I just took the exams. They were really hard.
Mm.
They're really hard,
Mm.
and they're, as you say, they're hard for people who are maybe more naturally gifted in that area. And then when you put it in the perspective of like, that hasn't ever really been my comfort zone, yeah, everyone was like a massive achievement. And I think that we we still underplay that in the profession a little bit when we see people going through all of these qualifications, chartered financial planner in 2 years. Like, that's intense, and that's a lot of pressure for young people, for people
Mm.
entering the profession. And yeah, it's a big achievement for anyone.
Fascinating stuff. So tell us about Magenta today. Tell us about the clients. Give us some metrics to understand. Give us a sense of where the business is at today.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, when we started Magenta, randomly today, I looked back at our FCA application because I was trying to help someone out through NextGen. And, you fill in all these metrics, don't you, about what your estimates are going to be and where you see yourself in 5 years and how much your revenue is going to increase by, you know, and all of that. And I think that when we did it, we were being probably quite cautious because, Julie brought a wealth of experience having run, different business, successful businesses before. And we were pretty confident that we knew eventually clients were going to join us. So we knew that there was going to be some clients join us, but we were under covenants and we were under situations where we knew that we wouldn't be able to, absolutely rely on that. So, when we first started, I think that we said something like, turnover in the first year was going to be around 400,000. And it was tiny. We started off all working at home, which to start off with, like, that's 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when that wasn't happening then, when now it's happening all over the place. But we were all remote. There was various challenges. So we had 3 people, Julie, myself, and a support member of staff to start off with, and then pretty quickly we knew we needed to take on, a paraplanner. And we'd worked with Rebecca Tuck before, who, is also in the Next Gen planning community. You might know her name. And she's now at Paradigm Norton, but she was with us for a long period of time. And so she joined us pretty quickly as well, sort of in the first 6 months. And then everything just escalated. We definitely needed an office pretty quickly. The business grew quicker than we expected. So, starting point 2016, about 450,000 or something.
Wow.
And then in 2020, we sort of hit the £1 million mark. And we've got 8 staff. Now, between 2020 and now, I wouldn't say necessarily the kind of existing employee bank has changed very much. So we're still with 8 people, but that's Julie's retired. We've been through a pandemic. We're now in a cost of living crisis. So I guess we're all trying to, deliver as much as we can for our clients with the team that we've got at the moment. But yeah, clients are a mixture of people, as all businesses are. But I think typically what we tend to see coming now, and that's probably because of efforts around branding, efforts around niching, is that I personally, as an advisor, deal with an awful lot of female clients. They might be part of a couple, but where the woman maybe is the lead kind of person instigating the need for financial advice. But also quite a few people who are business women who are single, or retirees who are single, or divorcees or bereaved women. That's kind of where my sweet spot is, and also where my passion is. Like, that's who I would really like to serve more of. But we have a general, we also have different people phoning us, and a wide mix of people, probably anywhere between 45 and 60, I would say, as those kind of key area of clients that want to come on board.
You're listening to Retirementals. I'm here to tell you all about Advisor 3.0 Change Agents. The must-attend conference for financial planners is happening in London on 18th of May 2023. Sizzling keynote speakers include Baroness Karen Brady, CBE, and the legend that is Seth Godin, plus Ola Abdul and Sean Hegarty. Co-hosted by Abraham Okasanya and Robin Wigglesworth, guests can enjoy insightful, interactive panels, debates, networking, Q&A sessions, and so much more. Grab them now at www.timeline.co/Advisor 3.0.
It's an incredible milestone, when financial planning firms, indeed any business, I was looking at the stats. I can't remember the exact, numbers and figures, but something like 80% of companies, right? I mean, a lot of companies in the UK are just, that's not what I mean. I don't mean to dismiss it, but they are, one person incorporating themselves,
Yes.
and not employing anyone. But to get, and even among companies that employ, vast majority have 1 or 2 employees. So to get to that sort of 8 people working within the business, I say to people, that's 8 families, right, who depend on you and the work that you do for their for their sustenance. They bring value to the business, of course, and then that milestone of 1 million, it's incredible. And I'm doing some benchmarking in my head. It's completely wrong, people tell me, but you guys have 2 planners within the business and then support team. So of course the run rate is more than 1 million. If you work on the basis that the average revenue for a financial advisor in the UK is something like 160,000, you guys are doing 3-4 times that figure. It's insane, and you're incredibly humble, too humble, annoyingly humble about it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm going to be honest. When Julie retired, it was a bit of a nightmare because, it was earlier than we suspected it would happen. We predicted it would happen. Pandemic had a big influence on that because of the way that work changed, and she should be the first one to say that, that really did make her go, what am I doing? I should be doing more, because I am at a point now where I could enjoy all of this stuff and walk the talk. And I really respect that she wanted to, go, enough's enough. I need to do this thing for me now, And so I'm not going to lie, that first year, I think, was a bit of a blur, because suddenly I had all those clients, and even though I'd taken on Jamie, who's the financial advisor who's working with me now, he didn't know any of the clients, didn't know how we worked, he didn't know, and even if because he'd been doing a financial planning role before, businesses are so different, the way that you deliver, the way, everyone's got different ways of doing things. So it took him a long time to, get his sort of feet under the table as such. And so it was, it is a lot of clients, but you can't do that without the team. I don't know anyone at that level, and you're doing your own benchmarking. I know Brett Davidson's done, benchmarking on that. If you're managing that amount of clients and that amount of revenue with only 2 people, that's great, but you've got to make sure that all other cylinders are firing. And that's the biggest challenge of running a business, the people thing, 8 people, 8 dramas, 8 headaches, and they know that's the way it is, they got that's. So I think you have to have great team members behind you to make sure that you can do all of that,
It's incredible. Congratulations. Let's talk about that, succession or transition process that you went through obviously Julie was, he's still, she's still around, a leader in the financial planning profession, and you started the business together. Walk us through what that management buyout looks like. I want all the details as much as you can give on a podcast. I'm keen to know valuation, financing, the conversation that went on. Was she like, I need to go by X date, and you say, well, I need you for Y? Give us a sense of how that panned out.
Yeah, I mean, I have reflected on it quite a lot, because obviously you've asked me to come to a conference and talk a little bit about, be on a panel. But also we've been having conversations here about future succession and what that might look like, and all sorts of things, and I think the one thing that I keep coming back to with Julie and I is somehow, and I think this takes effort on both parts. We had over the years built such an amount of trust in one another that actually this MBO, whilst it still created a little bit of tension and we still had backwards and forwards conversations, it wasn't that hard. I mean, it was hard because these things just take time. It's legal stuff and things like that. But I'm thankful that we had managed to develop, and we'd had various conversations. I mean, the situation was that when we originally set up Magenta, I had also invested, and I'd negotiated pretty damn hard and got 20% to start off with, because Julie wanted to work reduced hours. She did what she wanted to go on holiday for the whole of January, or December, January was the whole deal. Like, if we do this, I want more holidays, I want more flexibility, because at that point she was taking the majority of the risk, So we talked about that. So I knew that I was going to have to run that business, be an MD, have all the responsibilities that come with that of day to day. So I really negotiated hard to start off with. But, I got my investment back within the first 12 months, so I'm not, dragging, I was always getting rewarded for the risk and the everything that we were taking. But so let's think about the MBO. So after the initial amount, I'd had 2 discussions with her throughout the years, and I physically paid for an additional 5% 1 year and 5% another. So I was a 30% shareholder when she came to me and said, I want out. So I think that put me in a slightly stronger position anyway than if you're going from, nothing, because you kind of understand a bit about the negotiations you've had before, and you understand about maybe what value you might have put on it at that point. And we did really rudimental maths. We just did, right, I think the turnover's this, I think, 2.5 times this is this, and it's an internal deal, and I'm gonna, I negotiated discounts for the fact that I was a smaller shareholder, right? It was pretty much like, I think it should be this, and then she'd come back and go, I think it should be this, and we'd agree something in the middle. It wasn't that complicated. But the MBO, I guess there was bigger questions. So when she first came to me, I was like, well, I can't afford to do this. I don't know if I want to do this. And she was like, well, the options are, I can stay on as a 70% shareholder but not work. I'll take my 70% profit, thank you very much, and I'll sell, but I want to sell in another 3 years. So you'd need to be working towards we could sell externally, in 3 years. Or you could see whether you could buy me out before then, so that was kind of where we're at. And then I thought, right, there's no way that I can physically, almost like mentally and physically cope with paying 70% of my hard-earned, everything that we're working towards out to someone who's not sat in the business anymore, because I think I would have really struggled with it. So once I'd realised that was a no-brainer, I had to try and work out what else was going to happen. And so that led to conversations with a variety of different financing companies. And eventually we did use Virtus, which a lot of people know in the space, and their links to Transact. So, they helped me kind of understand what it could look like, advise the best route. we we basically laid out our heads of terms ourselves. So Julie and I we're both very much like, we need to keep costs down as far as we can because these things escalate out of control. So we went, right, where does it start? And, I just put together some things to start off with, and we negotiated, backwards and forwards from there. And to be, a lot of it was not about the price of the business. A lot of it was about the ancillary stuff, over how long it would be, what term it would be, what rates of interest, the deferred payment would be, whether she could still have some other benefits, things like that.
It's incredible, Gretchen. Thank you for your honesty and forthrightness. This is why I enjoy doing this podcast. I know you're going to be talking about this at the Advisor 3.0 conference in May, but I have learned, so much, and I have listened to a lot of consultants talking about, succession planning and things like that. But I've learned far much more from your 2-3 minutes explanation of the journey than I'd learned from a lot of this conversation. So thank you for this. And the thing to my mind, the question in my mind is, do you think of this as the model for succession planning in financial planning? By that, I mean, there are lots of very successful small, I mean, 1, 2, 3 men, women, businesses. Is the model, the way I think about it, correct me, I know it's not like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the model just basically they go out, find a successor or a young, bright, brilliant lady to join, and they work with them over a period of time, 6-7 year period, and they transition that way. Is that the model, do you think?
I mean, I think it's a brilliant model because I know that it works, but I also know I'm nervous about saying it's the best model, given that so much of it relies on a lot of trust. I've seen people in my peer group who have been in this scenario, and for some reason that deal has fallen through. People get a bit greedy on both sides, and then maybe need advice. That the reality is the antagonistic part of it comes when you start to get your lawyers involved, because they're going to point out things that maybe you haven't thought of. They're going to point out things to them that they haven't thought of. And unless you have a great relationship to be able to come together and go, right, well, this made me feel a bit shit, but this is what it is. This is what it is, and my solicitor's telling me this, and my lawyer's telling me this, and they're going, well, da da da. And somehow you can meet in the middle. And I think a lot of it kind of deteriorates at that point because people stop being honest about maybe what they want, or they start being, a little bit greedy because they see what's on the table. And I think, Julie just had that, that genuine feeling of she wanted great value, but she wanted also the succession to work. And a lot of people say, isn't it, that the best deal is where both parties feel a little bit aggrieved about the conclusion. I feel that I probably paid too much. She feels she probably didn't get enough. And there we have it. We're both a little bit, but we can get on with it. And so I think, it's not for everyone. And I think sometimes we just automatically assume that everybody who is a financial planner, who has aspirations, who show themselves as, intelligent and high flying, and want to be a business owner. And I think that actually a lot of people might start off thinking they want to be that. But, it's not for everyone. There's a lot of other things. There's a lot of high stress. There's a lot of, major burnout, I feel, because you are running, you've got so many different pressures. And certainly over the last 3 years, I would say, let's face it, we've all been through significant changes in our business because of the way that we've had to change to online or be more agile in regards to remote. And then now we've got a cost of living crisis. We've got massive problems with retaining staff, recruitment, and to be honest, that won't matter how good your culture is if ultimately people will probably move, because that's what generally happens. So I think that that's not for everyone, those stresses, when you're thinking about it on a Saturday night and making some notes on your phone because you thought about something, that some people just don't want that pressure.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? There's a lot of, I know I speak to, not as well, as often and well as I should, to a lot of the next gen people in the next gen community, younger, financial planners, and there's a lot of frustrated successors out there, a couple of things that you've done that I will pick out. So by the way, I interviewed Matt Marias at Vatos Capital, and he walked me through this entire process. We took a case study. So I don't think the podcast is out yet, but if you're listening to this, it's probably out by the time you are. Go back and listen to that episode. But one of the things that he said, and straight jumped out at me when you were talking, was that you were already on the cap table. In other words, you already owned, you started out with 20% of the company, and then you bought, another 10%. I'm interested how you finance that. Like, I'm thinking, she's a rich woman, it's a salary finance, I sacrifice in dividends, of course, to buy. There are a lot, and then, so he said to me, well, the one thing that accelerates the process is that you need to already be a shareholder, owning 25, I think he said, % of the business, because then he can come in to the extent that all of the emotional and some financial agreement between the parties are in place. He can come in and support you and bring the finance in to finance, the buyout. But if you go into a supposed succession plan and 2-3 years into the journey, you don't own equity, I will question. That for me, maybe I'm wrong, will start to ring.
I think so. I think so. I mean, to answer your question about like how I afforded it, I'm not a particularly rich person, but I think what happened was I did have, some money that I was able to invest to start off with. And then what that meant then was that then, when we had a good profitable year and Julie was wanting to take her dividend out of that, I was getting my dividend. I just literally didn't take anything. I did. I had to take it, pay my tax, and then repurchase something. So, everything about it, every single scrap of savings for the first 5 years, was about trying to claw back little bits. And if I was giving advice to anyone, it's like, and of course, my accountancy friends helped with this, which a lot of people, there's not really a lot of research out there that I could find about what kind of discounting you should be negotiating. The reality is, if you only own 5%, you shouldn't be paying whole of market or even an internal market cost, because you have no control. The person could sell it when they want to. They can dictate everything if they really wanted to. Now, I don't believe that that's what would have happened in this scenario of Magenta, because I was already running the company. I had full autonomy over decisions, because Julie didn't want to do that. But she could have, and I think you have to negotiate hard for that discount. Your 5% shouldn't cost you the full 5%. You should be taking some account, just general guidance from someone and going, if you were me and you were valuing this and only had 5%, what's it worth? And just go hard with it. Like, I think the other tip I would say is, like, you do have, if you're serious about it, I feel like I was really serious about it. I was like, right, I've got to make it so that this company can't run without me. So then I'm going to get some kind of reward for that as well. So I'm going to go in and go, right, I want this discount because of this, but also, if I'm not here and then this company's not going to perform as it is, or you're suddenly going to have to go back from 3 days a week to 6 days a week, and also have all this responsibility of accounts, everything, all pay someone. So it's negotiating good salary for you for everything that you're doing, and the more that you're doing, the more you can say, I need that discount. And you do have to work hard. And I think this is not across the board. I certainly think there are plenty of people out there who really, really want it and want to work hard. But I also think there's an element of like, well, I want a bit of, I want this work-life balance. I didn't have any work-life balance, but it's for a short period of time because now I have good work-life balance. So it's like, am I going to sacrifice, some for a lot? And that's how I see these deals going through. It's like sacrifice some now, and in all of those, as you say, those first 3 years, like make yourself absolutely, I can't do it without you, and build trust and show trust by, demonstrating consistent things, and then reap the rewards at that point.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, Gretchen. Thank you for your honesty and forthrightness on this, because I think that as a profession, I don't hear enough of these things, right? Talked about in the transparent and simple way that you talk about it. And I think that as a profession, we need to think about this type of model. I think it needs to be widely adopted. As you said, it's not the only route, but increasingly I speak to a lot of financial planners who built great, incredible businesses, and it gets to the point. Can you imagine? We're talking about the legendary Julie Lord leaving this business. Like, I don't know if you've met the woman, right? She's a force of life, a force of nature. And financial planners will say to me, "Oh, Abraham, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to keep going. And I'm like, yeah, you're saying that now, but something happens in life,
And I think, so a lot of people after when we was first talking about the MBO said to me like, well, she'll never retire properly. No, I can't believe it. But actually, if anyone, Julie at that point, some things had changed, things had changed in her life, and the pandemic and stuff like that. Our kids are adults, all of those things. And I also think that it is about like letting someone in. So I do think that succession has to start really early. So that 7, 8 years or whatever of hiring that person, it's not about thinking they're going to take over, but it is about thinking, can I trust them with this bit of the work? Can I fully embrace the changes that they're suggesting? Am I going to accept that they're going to walk into my office and say, we need to change this. This isn't where we should be now. We need to move forward with the business. Can we accept new ideas from them rather than it all be about us? And, I think that Julie was very good at that. And yeah, we had times where she said, no, I don't agree. And we might have a day where we talked about something and we both not quite agreed, or I challenged something. And then we'd go home and then we'd come back the next day and we'd both be like, actually reflected on that. And I think that's a really good idea. And we had that relationship all the way. It takes time to build that relationship though, and effort. And both parts have to make effort and conscious effort, I think.
Gretchen, I know I've kept you, so thank you for thank you for the insight. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I need to start wrapping this up. And if you're listening and you want to listen and hear more about this stuff, these are the sort of things we'll be talking about at the Advisor 3.0. But let's start to wrap this up. Otherwise, Jake, my producer, is going to start screaming down my neck. Okay, breathing down my neck. So where do you see the business go from here? So, you now own the business, you got an incredible team around you. What's next?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably much of the same. The main thing would be to have like a great consistent year, given where everything's been, in the markets, etc. So, we should hit. The target was 1.2 this year. We're not going to hit that. Probably be closer to 1.1. So, as I said to the team, we'll be reframing that and we'll be going, right, that's our target for next year. Then, that's what we've got to do. We've always got to be aiming at, increasing business. It's never going to be that I'm going to suddenly double overnight. I'm not necessarily interested in that kind of massive, sudden, growth projections. And I think we need to take on another trainee. So that's what we'll be looking at. I will be looking ideally to get a female advisor trained. So I've been working really closely with someone in my team called Jess, who has been brilliant. She's been a trainee advisor, but for a variety of reasons that are, quite personal to her, she's decided that she would like to, for now, focus on paraplanning. So she's doing that. So what I need to do is go, right, well, I've got Jamie, and one of our things, our commitments to the Women in Finance Charter is that we will be a percentage of females in this business, and especially in senior leadership. So what I need to do is bring someone on into that role, really. So that'll be my aim probably for September, when we start to look at graduates, etc., and trainees. We've got a young team. I've got people who need to train more, and I've also got someone who was probably at the tail end of their working years. So we've got to think about the impact that will have on the team as she decides to retire. So yeah, day-to-day things like that are just going to take up time. More clients, more fun with clients, because I find, meetings with clients brilliant fun and exciting. And I'd love to do more of that rather than, be quite so weighed down sometimes on the management stuff. And what else? For me, so I've gone down to 4 days, which has been quite a big adjustment. So the plan always was, really, once Julie had left, that once I'd got the team right, that I'd go down to 4 days. I don't manage to do just 4 days every single week, but that is the intention. And in that, I'm going to pottery and doing ceramics on the days when I'm not in work, which is amazing and really, warms the soul when you're going back to something that you loved so much. So I want to do more of that. So, if I go down more or less, just thinking about work-life balance is really important.
Wonderful stuff. So, is there anything that you wanted to talk about? You wanted to any sort of final message or final words for our listeners?
Well, I feel like we've covered quite a lot, haven't we? I think the main thing is, if anyone wants to talk about where they are in their career, about their ideas of wanting to maybe be a successor, my email. And contact details, you can just get me through LinkedIn. So I just welcome anyone who wants to do that. If they've got questions they want just to I'm always going to be pretty honest with how the situation is, of what I know and what I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be part of an employee-owned business. I don't know what it's like. Well, I kind of know what it's like to be absorbed into a very large business if there's an external sale. But I definitely have experience, we've talked about, of, negotiating, trying to just really think about, put yourself in the other person's shoes when you're negotiating, and doing that with empathy, given all of the efforts that they've, put into their business. So if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm open to having a conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Gretchen Betts, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your honesty and openness. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and learned loads from this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. No, it's been great. Thanks very much.
I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline Retirement Planning Software and PyTech, low-cost flat-fee model portfolio manager. And to you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you.
I'm here to tell you all about Advisor 3.0 Change Agents. The must-attend conference for financial planners is happening in London on 18th of May 2023. Sizzling keynote speakers include Baroness Karen Brady, CBE, and the legend that is Seth Godin, plus Ola Abdul and Sean Hegarty. Co-hosted by Abraham Okasanya and Robin Wigglesworth, guests can enjoy insightful, interactive panels, debates, networking, Q&A sessions, and so much more. Grab them now at www.timeline.co/advisor 3.0.